When I started online 17 years ago, the first thing I learned was build an email list. So I did what everyone said. Created lead magnets, opt-in pages, content, ads, and it worked, kind of. It was just slow and expensive and never fast enough to really feel like momentum. And it wasn't until I stopped thinking about list building as an effort problem that everything changed. And by the time this video is over, you're going to understand why the money's in the list. It was right about the destination, but it was completely wrong about the road to get there. And I'm going to show you the actual numbers behind a system that so far has delivered over 79,000 subscribers to client newsletters with an average open rate of 56% without a single opt-in form. Now I want to be careful here because you've probably been sold hundreds of subscribers a day before and it turned out to be garbage. Bot traffic, dead emails, people who never open. So I'm not going to ask you to take anything on faith here. Let me put the receipts on the table first, and then I'll walk you through exactly how it works. Right now, as I'm recording this, we have 17 active clients that we send subscribers to. We've delivered over 79,000 subscribers straight to our own newsletters and client newsletters. We have around 250 email inboxes that are actively sending cold emails every single day, and that number just keeps climbing. We've sent over 500,000 cold emails so far, with nearly 250,000 of those being sent in the last 90 days alone. So these aren't projections that I'm giving you. This is the actual odometer. And by no means am I saying that we're doing massive numbers here. I have friends that are literally sending millions of emails per day, so I know we're a small fry in the world of cold email volume. The reason I'm sharing this with you is because I spent a better part of 2 decades growing my email lists the hard way before I figured out the easier way that I'm about to break down for you here in this video. So let me go ahead and give the enemy a name here because it's an idea that almost everybody in this space still repeats. The old advice was build a list. And for the most part, the way that people teach it, that hasn't changed in 15 years. Write a better lead magnet, run more ads, post more content, grind for opt-ins one at a time. The whole thing actually gets framed as an effort problem. They tell you that if your list isn't growing fast enough, then you're just not working hard enough. You're not posting enough. You're not optimizing your landing page enough. But here's the reframe that I have for you, and it's what this entire video is about, so let it sit with you. List building was never an effort problem. It's actually a data problem. And that problem is already solved. In fact, there's an entire industry being built around this idea right now. You may have heard of SaaS, software as a service. But what's now on the rise is a completely new business model that people are calling DaaS, data as a service. And most people have no idea that it even exists. Think about it like this. Imagine that you open a bakery and you're told that the way to get customers is to stand on the sidewalk and hand out flyers one person at a time, hoping a few of them are hungry and happen to like your bread. Well, that's the equivalent to old school opt-in list building. You're guessing who wants it, and you're doing it one handshake at a time. Now imagine instead you could get a list of every person within 5 miles who searched fresh sourdough near me, and they did it this week. Same bakery, but now you're playing a completely different game. You stopped guessing and you started with the people who already raised their hand. What I'm telling you is that list, it already exists. In fact, you can get even more specific than that. If you wanted to, you could get a list of people who searched fresh sourdough near me, and they have a pre-existing buying history of purchasing sourdough bread more than 3 times in the past month at bakeries within a 5-mile radius of your bakery. Now, that's a little creepy, I know, but it's reality. And this is actually the part that most people don't like to think about, but I want you to hear it from me as just a calm observation instead of a rant. Because whether you realize it or not, your data is already being bought and sold everywhere you go. When you swipe your credit card, that information moves. When you search Google, that information moves. When you start seeing an ad for the exact thing that you were just thinking about, that's because information moved. Even when you're just talking near your phone, that data gets captured. So like it or not, your data is being sold right now. And most people hear this and they feel a little uneasy. And you know what? I get it. It feels a little like we're living inside of a Black Mirror episode, but once you get past that, here's the thing that I figured out that changed everything for me. There are places that you can go right now where you can be the buyer of that data instead of being just the product. And if you know what kind of data to buy, you know where to buy it, and most importantly, you know how to activate it, well, then you stop being the person on the sidewalk handing out flyers. Instead, you become the person who already knows who all is hungry. And by the way, if this reframe that I just gave you, if it landed for you, if you've spent months or even years grinding for subscribers one at a time, and you're only now realizing that the bottleneck was never really the effort, then do me a favor, drop a comment below that says intent. I read them, and I want to know how many of you have actually been stuck on the wrong problem this whole time. I promise you're not alone. Okay, so now let me show you the actual process, because the reframe is nothing if I don't give you the mechanism too, and I promised you receipts, not just theory. So here's how we do it today. Step one is we generate a high intent audience. This is where most of our money goes, and it's on purpose. We actually pay top dollar for the most premium, highest quality data possible. These are people that have expressed recent intent on exactly what the newsletter is about. And I do mean recent and exact. If the newsletter is about, say, scaling a coaching business, we're not buying business owner data. We're buying people who just took an action that says they're actively trying to solve that specific problem right now. And here's why this first step matters way more than just volume alone, because I know what you might be thinking. I thought it too. Just give me the biggest list that you can. Well, no, because bad data will absolutely collapse this entire system. Think about it. If you fill a newsletter with people who don't care, then your open rates are going to crater, and low open rates mean fewer eyeballs on the offers that you actually put in front of them. So a list of 10,000 people who don't open, it's worth far less than a list of 2,000 people who do. And that's the whole reason that our newsletters and a lot of our clients' newsletters consistently hold open rates of 50, 60, even 70+%, even as they grow into the thousands. And this isn't a trick, it's not metric manipulation, it's just that everyone on the list actually wants to be there. So that's step one. Now, step two is the part that almost nobody does. We clean it up and we qualify them before we add. We don't just take that raw intent data and start blasting people onto a list. First, we actually run it through a cleanup and verification service to validate those emails so we're not sending into dead inboxes. Then, and here's the key move here, we send that data through our own multi-step cold email campaign. But it's not a pitch. We actually call it a survey activation campaign. And the positioning for this campaign is super simple. We just reach out and we say, hey, we're surveying people who are interested in XYZ topic. And we know this is the exact topic that they already care about because that's the data that we bought. And so we say we're surveying people interested in this topic, and we would love for you to take 30 seconds and answer 3 quick questions. And then we tell them, as a gift for just participating in this, we're going to give you a complimentary subscription to a high-value newsletter that talks about the exact problem that we know they're already trying to solve. So notice what's happening here. We're not asking strangers to want something new. We're literally offering people something about a problem that they've already told the market that they have. Step 3 of our process is we let them say no and we honor it. This is where I break from almost everyone else that's selling growth. The survey campaign actually gives them multiple chances to opt out and tell us that they're not interested or to just not engage. And transparently speaking, about 40% of them, it's exactly what they do. They either say no or they just go quiet. And when that happens, we remove them. We don't still add them to the newsletter, ever. So right off the top, 40% of the data that we pull gets eliminated. The other 60%, they do express interest, and we mark them as engaged and qualified. That 60-40 split, it's one of my favorite numbers in this whole system because it proves that the thing works the way that it's supposed to. It's kind of serving the same role as like the bouncer at the door. If I let everyone in, the room would be full of people who genuinely don't want to be there. And the open rates would tell on us within a week. But instead, only the people who said yes and are genuinely interested, only those get through. And step 4 of our process is we automate the delivery. The second someone engages and gets marked as qualified, then we've built a process that pushes them onto the newsletter through the API literally within just a few minutes. So right now, the way that we've got it set up, there's no manual work. That's the mechanism that makes hundreds of subscribers on a daily basis actually possible. And once they're on, as long as the operator runs the newsletter the right way, then the open rates typically hold above 50%. Quick side note here, this part of the process can be done manually or even semi-manually. It's what we did originally. But it is time consuming, and over time, it can actually get quite expensive to manage it properly. Now, before we continue, let's zoom all the way out and give this whole thing a name here, because a named idea is one that you're more likely to remember. What we're really running here is a qualified intent pipeline. Intent on the front because we only start with people who are already looking. Qualification in the middle because the survey filters out anyone who doesn't say yes. And a pipeline on the end because we've automated the delivery and we're not doing it manually anymore just by more hustle. And most people obsess over the pipeline step, but the magic really is in the intent and qualification steps. When you get those right, the pipeline step happens automatically. Now, before I take this any further, let me be straight with you about where to go if you want to set this up for yourself. I put together a free breakdown of how the newsletter side of this actually works, and that's the part where you keep those open rates above 50% so the subscribers are worth having. Because quite frankly, you can have a list of 100,000 people or more, but if they're not opening or they don't know you or like you or trust you, you're not going to make much money from them. So the training shows how to do things the right way. It's linked below in the description, it's free, and it's the same foundation behind a business that we built to $100,000 in revenue over the course of just 11 weeks. So go grab it and actually apply it next to what I'm teaching you right now in this video. Because the growth engine part is only half of the equation. If you drive thousands of qualified people to a newsletter and then treat it like every other marketing list, pitching them every single day, well, you're going to burn the whole thing down no matter how good the data was. Now, I want to close this video on the one thing that I need you to walk away with. The bottleneck was never how hard you were working. And I proved that to myself the slow way over 17 years. I was grinding for opt-ins, convinced that if my list wasn't growing, I just needed to post more, run more ads, hustle even harder. But it was never that. The bottleneck was intent. The moment you stop trying to build an audience from scratch and start activating an audience that already exists, well, growth all of a sudden stops being a hustle and it becomes a predictable system. And so that's why the saying, the money's in the list, it was only half right. Yes, the money is in the list. It's just not the list that you sweated to build one form at a time. It's the list of people that have already raised their hand somewhere else and they're sitting there waiting for someone to actually reach out to them. Most operators will never do this though, not because they can't get access, but more so because they don't even know the data is here to buy, and they don't have the process to activate it without burning it. So that's the flip that I want you to consider making. I want you to stop only being the product whose data gets sold, and you become the buyer who turns that data into an audience of thousands who actually open and respond. And if you want to go deeper on the newsletter side of things, on how to run one of those newsletters so that open rates hold and the subscribers actually turn into sales, well, then watch the video that I'll point you to in the description. And if this reframe changed how you see list building even a little, consider subscribing, because this whole channel is about giving you a better way to think about what you're building, not just more tactics to chase. So with that being said, now I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, have you been treating list building as an effort problem this whole time, or did you already suspect that it might be something else? Take a side. I'll be reading, and I'll see you in the next video.